Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Welcome back. Scott Gulbransen along Moton here to talk a little bit of Raiders football. Excuse me. There's so much going on. I can't get the words out. We're going to get into a lot today in a very short amount of time. First up, we're going to talk about the Raiders coaching candidates. There are a few. Second, we're going to talk about Fernando Mendoza, the perennial favorite, if you will, for the Raiders to pick at number one. We'll talk a little bit about him. And then we'll take a few of your phone calls in the final second. I'll bring in my partner, Mo Moton. Mo's a senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. You can also follow him on x.com at Mo Moton, MoEMoton. I am at LV Gully, and the show is at SNB Today. Welcome back, everybody. All right, Mo, remember a couple years ago, my friend, we were talking about the Raiders coaching search when they decided to hire Antonio Pierce. It was a sham of a search. There was like 4 people, none of them viable, right? Now, as we talk to you today, we're doing real time here, release on a Monday. That is, there are 10 coaching candidates for the Las Vegas Raiders. These are all people who've been officially granted interviews. I want to name them real quick, and we'll go over a couple of them, Mo. Mike LaFleur, Rams OC, one of my favorites. Chris Shula, Rams DC. Nathan Schollhaus, the Rams passing game coordinator. You see his theme there with the Rams? Jeff Hafley, the Green Bay defensive coordinator. Helio Avero from the Panthers. He's their defensive coordinator. Davis Webb, the Denver passing game coordinator. Kevin Stefanski, of course, the former head coach of the Browns, recently fired. Matt Nagy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator. Vance Joseph, the Denver defensive coordinator. And Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator, the hot candidate coming out of Seattle. So, Mo, I don't know where to start with this list. I think, yes, they're interviewing some defensive coordinators, but reports out today in various sources in the media have said that the Raiders are favoring, thank goodness, an offensive mind here. But when you look at this list, this tells me something's changed, and I think that might be that Mark Davis is no longer involved.
First of all, I'll say that if that is the case that we think it is, at least in the head coaching search, that's a good thing, because the last time Mark Davis hired a coach or has been involved, you know what we got. What I will say is that when I had my Bleacher Report lives before the season ended, I said one of the things you want to look for is you want to choose, not necessarily want to, but you want to favor coaches from a good tree. And I said the Sean McVay coaching tree is one, the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree is the other. And I named all 3 of the assistants that you talked about, that you mentioned, from the Rams coaching staff that should be in the running for the Raiders head coaching job. Now, the top of the list for me is going to be Mike LaFleur, because he is the OC. I know people are going to say, Mo, he doesn't call plays. Neither did Kevin O'Connell. Didn't call plays under Sean McVay. I know Matt LaFleur is under heat because of the Packers losing to the Bears, but he's won 65% of his game as the Green Bay Packers head coach. Never called plays under Sean McVay. Just because an offensive coordinator was an offensive coordinator in title and never called plays doesn't mean he can't be a good head coach. Remember, it's a different job title. But you can take some of that Sean McVay influence and bring it to Las Vegas. I think it's a good thing. It would be a good thing for Mendoza. So top of the list for me, Clint Kubiak 1, Mike LaFleur 2. I'll give my full list over at Sportsnet at the end of the week. But those are the 2 guys that I have circled on my list.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying there, and this is why they're little clues. And yes, I'm completely reading into them, so I could be completely wrong. But you talk about Mike LaFleur, and he's quickly moved to my number 1 for the reasons you talked about. Not only the tree, but I think the Rams, as close as and as wide open as this playoffs is, as we saw from this past weekend, anybody could win it. I think the Rams are just a notch above everybody else, and I just like what they do offensively. But if you look at this interview schedule, Mike LaFleur, Chris Shula, of course, a DC in LA with the Rams, but then the Nathan Schollhaus, he is. Hey Mo, we're getting echo now, big time. I'll go back and edit. What happened? It was weird. Okay, it's gone now.
Weird.
Go figure. Okay, so I'll start from there. So Mo, what I like about this too is we talked about those 3 Rams coaches, and of course Mike LaFleur, who's risen to the top of my list for obvious reasons. But the Nathan Schollhaus as well, being the passing game coordinator, that tells me if they were to go with Mike LaFleur and he accepted the role, then you could get Schollhaus to come with him and basically have the same system you had in Los Angeles, where you have an offensive coach who might even call plays, even though he doesn't in LA. And then you got your next up and comer behind him with Schollhaus coming too. So you could get a 2-for-1 there. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I sort of like what's happening there as well. Some of these names, the Van Josephs, the Matt Nagy, the Stefanskis, these guys, like I've said very clearly, call them retreads, call them rehires, whatever you want to call them. I don't think that's what the Raiders need. They need somebody with completely fresh eyes and fresh blood. But to me, the Kubiak, the LaFleur stick out on top. Davis Webb, clearly interesting from an offensive perspective. Matt Nagy, to me, that might be a favor. I don't know. He's sort of an outlier to me.
I don't think Matt Nagy is an outlier. He is he's obviously not obviously, but he is one of the favorites to get the Tennessee Titans job simply because the GM from the Titans came from Kansas City and there's some Kansas City ties there. But I think a lot of people feel like Matt Nagy deserves a second chance because remember, Matt Nagy, his first year in Chicago, he got the Bears to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky. So there are some people out there who believe that Matt Nagy with a better quarterback can get his team to the playoffs and be a sustainable winner. So I do expect Matt Nagy to get another opportunity. I don't necessarily want it to be with the Raiders, but I do think he might get that Tennessee job if Clint Kubiak doesn't go there.
Right. And now you look at these coaching stats. For those of you waiting by your phone looking for that breaking news alert that the Raiders have hired their coach, obviously the LaFleur, Schollhaus, the guys from LA are in the playoffs. Then you have, of course, Halfley, who I think is a long shot, but with Green Bay, they're out. And then you have Denver still in. Stefanski's a free agent. Nagy's obviously out as well. Vance Joseph's still in the playoffs, as is Clint Kubiak. So it's going to be some time if it's one of those guys that we hope it is, as far as I think for the future of the Raiders. It might be a while for that. What else should we look for? I mean, Mo, they're going to have these interviews in between, but they can't really hire any of those guys that are in the playoffs until they're done.
Right, and that's why initially last week I said this process is going to take a bit because if they're going to be patient with, let's say, Kubiak, then they're going to be waiting a while. Let's Seahawks get eliminated this upcoming weekend by the 49ers. But what I'm looking at is for this list to grow over the next few days. I expect more names to appear on the Raiders interview request list, and they should. As we thought they would cast a wide net. You mentioned 10 candidates. We may get to 15 by the end of the week, and I say that's a good thing. The more names on the list, the better, because let's remember, you're not guaranteed to get your first or second option. I know everyone is fixated on Clint Kubiak, but what if Clint Kubiak decides he wants to go to Tennessee? What if Clint Kubiak decides he wants to go to Baltimore? Whatever the case may be, you have to be ready to pivot if your first or second options aren't there. And this is why I think Davis Webb comes in. If the Raiders do hire a defensive coordinator, I think Davis Webb could be an OC. I think it's too early for Davis Webb to be a head coach. He's only been coaching for 3 years. I remember watching Davis Webb as the second, third string quarterback here in New York for the Giants. So while as impressive as he's been, as intriguing as he is, he's only got 3 years coaching. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it doesn't matter. He's never been an OC. Dan Campbell wasn't an OC. Dan Campbell was a coach for 10 years before he got that job with the Lions. Let's remember that. He was a coach for 10 years before he got that job with the Lions. So Dan Campbell just didn't pop up out of nowhere. He had been coaching for a while. Davis Webb, again, 3 years coaching. I think that's a little early for a head coach. Probably an OC under a defensive head coach, though.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch what happens there. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Fernando Mendoza. Bang the drums for Fernando. Yes. Raider Nation singing ABBA. I'm still blows me away every time I say that. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about that, his performance against Miami, and of course, he's going to be playing later this week in the national championship game. Is he the guy for the Raiders? We'll ask you that question when we come back. It is Silver and Black today. You're with Mo and Scott. We're coming right back after this. All right, big game tonight, Monday night, to close out Wild card weekend, of course, the Texans and the Steelers. And we want to help you make some money on daily fantasy football with our good friends at Sleeper. By the way, if you make a deposit, get that Sleeper app for free, deposit it, put amount up to $100, and our friends at Sleeper, because you listen to Silver and Black today, are going to match that up to $100 using the code GENTY, as in Ashton Genty. Genty, get your deposit matched up to $100 just for signing up for a Sleeper. But Mo's going to pick this for us. He's going to give us some of his picks for tonight's game, the big Monday night game between the Steelers and the Texans. I like the Texans to win this one. They're 2.5-point favorites, by the way, Mo. But let's pick some players here with Sleeper that you're keeping an eye on.
So we'll go easy with the first one. Nico Collins, Houston Texans. We'll take the over on his receiving yards.
All right, so that's 73.5.
I think we get a big game from him.
Yep, so we're going 73.5 on Nico Collins. Okay.
Then we'll flip over to the Steelers. We'll take the over on Kenneth Gainwell's catches. Kenneth Gainwell, believe it or not, has been one of the primary pass catchers on the Steelers.
Yes.
Underrated pickup this offseason. When DK Metcalf was suspended for 2 games, he was one of the primary pass catchers in that offense.
Yeah. 33.5 yards. You got Kenneth Gainwell. All right. And for your last pick, Mo.
And for the last pick, Aaron Rodgers will take the over on his passing yards.
The over Go ahead.
There's some synergy there. So Aaron Rodgers over on the passing yards, Kenneth Gainwell on the catches. Aaron Rodgers, I think he could play one more year in this league. I think he's shown that he's still a decent starting quarterback. But I think even with that Houston Texans tough defense, and we know how tough it could be with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter on the edge, they got coverage on the back end with Derek Stingley. But I think Aaron Rodgers has shown he can get you at least 200 passing yards. 205, I think, is the over. 205.5, and they can get 206 at least against the Texans on Monday night.
There you go. So he's got Aaron Rodgers over 205.5. So Nico Collins, 73.5 yards over on that, over on the 205.5 for Aaron Rodgers with passing yards, and Kenneth Gainwell over 33.5 yards using Sleeper's daily fantasy football picks. We're putting 20 on that. That'll net us 70-20 for that. Wow. See, go put $20 on the app. It's free. The app is free. You deposit the $20, and not only that, Sleeper is going to match that up to $20 there. If you want to put the $100 in, they're going to match it up to $100. If you want to know more about this, check out the Sleeper app and the website for rules and regulations. It is not available daily fantasy in every state, but is most likely available in your state. So check it out. Don't forget, use the code GENTY. That's GENTY with that deposit. Get that match, get that free money. Go bet with Mo on daily fantasy football with Sleeper Picks. Welcome back. Segment number 2 here of Silver and Black today. Hope you're doing well on this Monday. Scott and Mo with you talking Raiders football. We just talked about the coaches, Mo, but of course the Raiders hold that number 1 slot in the NFL draft. You got pundits saying that they should trade out of that spot. You got pundits saying they should draft, Joe Blow out of whatever school. And then you got, I think, the rest of us who can use our heads a little better. And we're saying, oh man, Fernando Mendoza, if you had doubts about him, maybe some of those went away after another big game, another big performance. This kid all season long has done really, really well. You can pick apart stats and all of that, but my eyes don't lie when I watch the kid, Mo. And I watched him against Miami the other night. And again, what comes out to me is he the most talented physical specimen I've ever seen? No. Is he smart? Is he an amazing leader? Can he accurately throw balls like those tough outs that you count on in the NFL that are very difficult? Yes, he can. And to me, all of the intangibles plus the athletic ability plus the results point to me, and I still believe this is exactly what the Raiders should do. Most people think they will. What do you think, Mo, after watching him against Miami?
Should be a no-brainer. Should be a no-brainer. For the Raiders picking number 1 overall. Watching Fernando Mendoza the last 2 playoff games that he was in, Indiana dominates Alabama, and you saw what he did this past weekend. So I believe there was a crazy stat. He's had like more touchdown passes or just as many touchdown passes as in incompletions.
Yeah.
I mean, What, as I used to say with coaches, what more do you need to see? I know there were some people on the Dante Moore wagon, and that fell off very quickly. Dante Moore, by the way, very young. I
18
believe he's 20
starts.
years old, 18 starts, and I think Dane Brugler of the Athletic always points out the stat that when you draft a quarterback who has around 15 or fewer starts, you're playing with fire because there's a lot of growth that has to be made there by that quarter. Now, in fairness, all quarterbacks have to grow when they get to the NFL, but when you're around that 15 start mark, you start to get into the project territory. We start labeling quarterbacks
Right.
projects, and you have to say, well, does this quarterback need to sit for a full year before he even sees the field? And I think that may be the case for Dante Moore, though he has the tremendous upside. I think Fernando Mendoza is more of the pro-ready quarterback. If you're looking to toss a quarterback out there right away in year one and work around his contract, his rookie contract, that's the time you want to load up the roster with key players.
Right.
I think that's the best route to go with Fernando Mendoza. I'm not saying he's Andrew Luck. I see some people comparing him to Andrew Luck. I don't think he's Andrew Luck on the field as a talent. I think from the neck up, he's Andrew Luck like. The way he understands defenses and coverages, that's where he's more Andrew Luck. As far as the talent on the field, though, I think he's a notch below that, but still worthy of the number one overall pick and being a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and I've heard some comps to Matt Ryan, formerly of the Falcons, which I can see that a little bit.
A little
But
more
I think he's
athletic, in my
a
opinion.
little more athletic, can run the ball a little better, and I think is got more football smarts. But from a physical standpoint, very similar. But your point about quarterbacks with under 20 starts, Rich Cimini from ESPN noted this, that with more only having fewer than 20 starts, quarterbacks recent first round. So this is recency now, not going back way back in the day. With under 20 starts, Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Mitch Trubisky, Ryan Tannehill, and the only outlier that proved going against it was Cam Newton, right? So again, this is why I don't think there's any debate, and there's still some Raider Nation holding out to the wait till next year. And I'll ask you, how has the last 30 years done for you on that? It's just ridiculous. I think Fernando Mendoza brings with him the character as well that you want. You want a young leader, because you're going to lead a young. This team has to remake the roster, Mo. You want a young leader. You got a great one on defense if Max Crosby sticks around, which it appears he is. On the offensive side, you have Genti, you have Bowers, you have Michael Mayer right now, right? And you have some young linemen up front along with the veteran Colton Miller. A young quarterback with that sort of character and leadership ability is exactly what this team, what this franchise, and may I dare say, I'm going to prescribe to you as Dr. Gulbransen out there, Raider Nation, this is what you need as a fan. You need a guy like this to be the flag bearer for Raider Nation.
Yeah, and I think that's the ancillary part of this, right? Everyone's looking at the talent. You also want someone who you can trust at the quarterback position to be your franchise player, right? You don't want to have to worry about what is he up doing late at night. You know, is he going to be out partying? I know, like, people like to say, well, Vegas, young guys get in trouble, and it could be any city, any state, but most importantly, you just want to be able to sleep at night knowing your quarterback is going to do the right thing on and off the field. And I don't think that's a question with Fernando Mendoza.
No, and no player, I will remind everyone out there, no single NFL player is perfect. No quarterback in college. I had a friend here in Ohio arguing with me. Well, who has he played? So then my question to him was, who did Josh Allen play when he was at Wyoming in the Mountain West? Right? It doesn't matter. You look at the physical ability, and pro scouts know by looking at the player what they can develop him into. Now, they're not always right, but I think Fernando Mendoza is the biggest slam dunk that this team has had in many years, and I hope that's the direction we'll go. But we'll continue to do that. We're going to have some guests on very soon to talk about Fernando Mendoza. Covered him up at Indiana, so we'll get some insight there, which we do every year as we talk about players that the Raiders either drafted or considering, because we get really interesting insight from them of being around these kids before they hit the big limelight. So we'll do that as well. All right, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, Mo and I are going to take your phone calls. We'll see what you guys have to say. Is it about coaches? Is it about the draft? We'll figure it out. Coming up on the Raider Nation switchboard on this Monday edition of Silver and Black Today. Coming right back. All right. Yes, we tell you about sponsors here on the show, but I got to tell you, I, Scott Gulbransen, am obsessed with Brunt workwear. Since they sent me this pair of Omen boots, I have just been fascinated with the comfort because, when you have work boots, usually you have to give up comfort for durability, or you give up durability for comfort and they don't last. But that's not the case with Brunt workwear and these Omen boots, but that's not where they stop. I got to tell you, I'm obsessed with them. You can see me wearing my hat today, everything. And let me tell you why. Brunt founder Eric Girard grew up blue collar and started Brunt workwear after his friends in the trades kept telling him the big brands had stopped listening and hadn't changed in 100 years. I mean, listen, they sold out to become fashion brands, right? We've seen a lot of these boots now. You see them in the mall, but you don't see them on the work site. His buddies encouraged him to start Brunt, and that's what he did. And these are no doubt the most comfortable work boots I have ever worn, and they felt comfortable right out of the box. That's right. No painful break-in. I don't know about you, but I don't want blisters on my feet. I don't want to walk like I'm somehow hobbled because of the shoes I'm wearing. But listen, the boots aren't just comfortable. They're built to perform, whether you need waterproof, safety toe, soft toe, pull on, or lace up. They got the options that can handle whatever job site you're walking into. And Brunt stands behind what they make. You can wear them to work, and if they're not right for you, they're going to take them back. Yes, you heard it right. I don't know any other brand doing that. That's a company that believes 100% in their product. Right now, for a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use the code BOWNOSE at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com, use the code BOWNOSE, and you're good to go. Again, I have the Omen boots. These things are amazing. Don't forget, hey, Brunt was tired of workwear brands out there cutting corners. You work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that just suck. They don't hold up. So they built something better. Boots that are insanely comfortable and built for any job site. And again, for a limited time only, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use the code BOWNOSE at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com, use the code BOWNOSE, and you're good to go. Again, I'm so proud to be associated with Brunt. I'm not just somebody who they pay to endorse them. I'm also a customer. I wear these boots every single day. I'm in love with them. My wife kicked me out of bed because I wore them in bed. I don't know what to tell you, but they're that comfortable. So go check out bruntworkwear.com. Use the code BOWNOSE, $10 off from our friends at Brunt Workwear. Welcome back. Home stretch here. Final segment of this edition of Silver and Black today. Do us a favor. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, do so wherever you get your audio. If you're watching us on video, subscribe there, hit that thumbs up, and don't forget the notifications bell so you can get that notification when we have a new video. Bye-bye. There you go. Moton, Scott Gulbransen back with you. Don't forget to follow Mo on X, Mo Moton, M-O-E-M-O-T-O-N. I am at LV Gully. The show is SNB today. Okay, Mo, let's go out on the lines across the country, across the world, and see what folks have to go. We're going down to Florida, which with the 24-degree weather here, I wish I was down there. Here we go. Here's Ross.
Hey, Scott and Mo, it's Ross from Lakewood Ranch, Florida. Haven't been on in a while, but don't want to burst bubbles, but something to consider. Would love your thoughts. How can we be sure that Mendoza doesn't pull an Elway or an Eli Manning and say to the Raiders, don't draft me? I don't want to live in Las Vegas. I'm very religious, and the lifestyle of Vegas doesn't fit my core being. You take him anyway and trade him to, say, Tennessee for Ward? What else could be in play? Take care. I want him on the Raiders. Being a fan since 1964, you do the math. I got a few years left to see another Super Bowl. Thanks. Happy New Year.
There you go. Ross, a fan of 61 years. Wow. So let me start with this one, Mo, because I've lived in Las Vegas multiple times. There's a big misunderstanding about Las Vegas. When you live there, it's not like I woke up every day, I rolled into the strip joint, and then I went and I gambled, and then I bought a hooker. I mean, I get it. Las Vegas cultivates an image because it sells that stuff. But two things. Fernando Mendoza, like me, is a Catholic. Las Vegas is a very Catholic town, lots of Hispanics in the town. By the way, my wife, I'm married to a Cuban, Ross. Fernando Mendoza comes from a Cuban-American family. Las Vegas has a massive Cuban community. You think he'd like that? You think they're Catholic? Do you think they're religious? Yes. So there are things that you don't see that are appealing about the area. No doubt there are things that you could be concerned about, as you find in any big city, whether it be New York, New Orleans, Miami, you name it, right? Where he's from in Miami, where he grew up. Same thing. Lots of stuff going on down there. So I get what you're saying. On the point of if he didn't want to go to the Raiders, remember, the last time that happened was 22 years ago. Not saying it can't happen. Eli Manning, 2004, didn't want to go to the Chargers. Before that, it was the Bo Jackson, John Elway. You're talking the 80s now, 40 plus years ago. It doesn't happen much anymore. It's probably because of some of the money involved and definitely organizationally. Now, the Jets might have to deal with a little more, but I think when you look at Fernando Mendoza, Mo, you look at the guaranteed money coming out, you look at the fit for him and all the other reasons I just mentioned that people might not realize, I just don't see that happening. Fernando Mendoza seems like a kid ready for a challenge, and he'll go wherever he needs to go to meet that challenge.
Also, you got to remember there were reports out there that he idolized Tom Brady a bit growing up. What young quarterback didn't coming up? You're thinking, okay, I can align myself with Tom Brady, who I grew up watching, arguably the best quarterback that I've watched in my generation, if you're speaking from Mendoza's point of view. And the fact that Brady is there with the football mind he has, and you hear Mendoza speak about the game the way he does, I think Mendoza will be drawn to someone like that, being at the top of the organization as a former quarterback and not far removed from the game himself. So I think a lot of fans are waiting for the other shoe to drop, and what bad could happen to the Raiders where we don't get the dream quarterback we want. I think Raider fans have to shift gears and start thinking of the positive side of how things are set up in this offseason for the Raiders to get their quarterback of the future and how it aligns and how Tom Brady helps that come to fruition. So, Ross, I would say look at the positives and look at the links that you can see why Mendoza would want to be with the team versus why he would say, I don't want to play for the Raiders, because he's more likely to be picked by the Raiders and enjoy his time in Las Vegas for some of the reasons you pointed out. And as I said, that link with Tom Brady.
Not only that, but then listen, Ross, you've seen the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, which I would say was this year. So you've seen it all. So I get it. But I do think your point about Tom Brady, not only from the football perspective, but here's a guy who's going to come into $45 million, right? Come April, 45-ish, maybe more, depending. And then that's not even adding in endorsements he may get. Not only is Tom Brady there to help you with football, Mo, but if I'm a young quarterback, Tom Brady as a business advisor, as well as far as, getting him the right contacts to invest his money, all that kind of stuff is just right there in front of you. And again, you're with the GOAT. And you can find the interview on YouTube. He did an interview where he talked about, he said, if you could have dinner with one person, who would it be? And Mendoza selected Tom Brady because he'd want to talk about football. He'd want to talk about life. He'd want to talk about business. He'd want to talk about overcoming obstacles. So yes. So I think, Ross, I don't think that would happen. Anything can happen, but I don't think it would. So hopefully that makes you feel a little better about it. All right. Now we're going to South Carolina, to mixed folks in South Carolina.
Hey, what's up, Scott and Mo? This is Mixed Folks, calling from Greenville, South Carolina, originally from the Bay Area. I made the move out this way not too long ago. My question for you is, with Rob Leonard being so highly regarded amongst the Raiders players themselves, with our D-line being one of our better units, why does he not get more traction on potentially a head coaching, or not a head coaching gig, sorry, a defensive coordinator gig to move up? Why is he stuck constantly at that defensive line coach plateau? I know he moved up to run game coordinator a little bit, defensive run game coordinator for our team this year, but I'm just wondering what's the next steps for him realistically, and is there a reason why those steps haven't been taken? I appreciate all you guys do, keeping it real for the nation, and look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Have a good one, y'all.
All right. Thanks for the call, Mo. Rob Leonard.
First of all, he's from South Carolina, which is where my folks are from. So shout out to the
Yes.
South Carolina. I know he's a transplant there, but shout out to the South Carolina folks. Rob Leonard, he did add, as you mentioned in the call, he did add run game coordinator, defensive run game coordinator to his resume. I think had the Raiders not retained Patrick Graham, that defensive coordinator position probably could have been Rob Leonard's. But because Patrick Graham has been through 3-4 regimes, the Raiders have held on to Patrick Graham for so long. I think it kind of blocked Rob Leonard from moving up this past year. Because remember, Rob Leonard came from Baltimore originally. He wasn't with the Raiders as long as Patrick Graham was. But I think this hiring cycle, if the Raiders don't retain Rob Leonard, I do think he's going to get some defensive coordinator looks. Because as you mentioned, and I think D'Amico Ryans also said this after the Raiders played the Texans. He said that Raiders defense is playing a lot better than people give it credit for. It's a lot better than people see on TV. When you really break it down, he said that Raiders defense can play pretty well. So I think Rob Leonard, with the respect of around the league, respect of coaches around the league, I think he is going to get some interviews for a defensive coordinator position. Wouldn't be surprised if he pops up as a D coordinator for another team in 2026.
Yeah, watch where John Harbaugh goes, right? Watch for Jesse Minter. If Jesse Minter gets a head coaching job, if let's say Jesse Minter goes to Baltimore, back to Baltimore, he'd be, I would imagine Rob Leonard would be a prime candidate.
Yeah.
So I think he's lined up for some good opportunities. But again, these things happen a little slower than you want them to. But I do anticipate good things for Rob Leonard. All right, thanks for the call, man. Now we're going out to Raider Eddie in Denver.
Hey, Scott and Mo, what's up, you guys? Love the show. This is Raider Eddie in Denver. Hey, this past season kind of reminds me of that episode of Friends where Rachel's making a dessert and she's reading off the ingredient list to the roommates, and they sound great, and it's got this sweet ingredient, this other thing, and all of a sudden there's meat in it, and it's just apparently the pages got glued together, and what appeared to be some great ingredients, like separately or on their own, just didn't go well. To me, that's like what the Raiders were this year. I hope Brady learns from this. I don't want Brady to meddle with what Spytek's plan is. Spytek, I think, is more of an expert in the team building area, and I just don't want Brady to meddle too much. Guys, a second thing I want to touch base on. My top three guys are Kubiak, Stefanski, and then Harbaugh, John Harbaugh. I like Kubiak and Stefanski because they're relatively young. Kubiak's very young, 38. I think they give us the best chance at being offensive line, best chance to allow Mendoza to be successful and turn us into a winning team. Okay. I like Harbaugh. Now, in his favor, he's proven he does have a Munkin. Okay, so he has a system, a good offensive system with him that he might be able to bring with him. I just feel that he's a little on the older side, and I don't love that. Okay, want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And then finally, guys, Mo, I love hearing you talk about Marcus Johnson on Tape Don't Lie. I mentioned it to him on one of the threads in one of the shows. You guys here on this show, and then Tape Don't Lie, two of my favorites, guys. You guys dissect, look at tape, or they look at tape. You guys talk about real data and factual information. You're not overly biased one way or the other, and so I love both your guys' shows. You guys have a good one. Raider Eddie in Denver out.
All right, there's Raider Eddie. Good call, man. We appreciate that and the kind words for us and for Tape Don't Lie. And Marcus and those guys over there do a great job as well. Mo, I don't know where to start with the John Harbaugh. I'm tired of talking about John Harbaugh, but let me get your take on his coaching questions there.
So I am with him. Obviously, Clint Kubiak is probably the number one candidate, as I said in the first segment. My number two would probably be Mike LaFleur. We talked about the coaching tree. I talked about Kevin Stefanski a little bit, and I think people are going to bristle a bit at Kevin Stefanski because his record wasn't great in Cleveland. But let's be honest, the Browns have been a dumpster fire. And as a play caller and head coach, I think Kevin Stefanski, what he did early when he first got to Cleveland, got him to the playoffs, was coach of the year, I believe.
Twice.
Among the, if you want to call them retreads, he would be the guy that I would bring in. Because I think he not only could he help the offense and the quarterback, But he has a proven track record where he can do more with less, in my opinion, because we all know, again, the Browns have been a hazmat for quite some time. And for him to go in there and get that team to the playoffs with Baker Mayfield, now I know Baker Mayfield playing a lot better than Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay has a much better structure than what Cleveland has.
Right.
And I think if you put Kevin Stefanski in a system where he has time to build his program, and I understand the Raiders structure hasn't been great either, comparable to the Browns, some people. If it's a structure where he could build his program and have some time, I think he could also work. He's also proven to be able to build a good coaching staff. That Browns defense in some of the years that he's been there has been tops in points and yards allowed. So he has links to Jim Schwartz. He's had previous defenses that have performed pretty well. So the other thing you want to look at is, can this head coach assemble a quality staff? Because that has been a big problem with the last two regimes. Antonio Pierce and a bunch of assistants, poor coaching staff. Pete Carroll had to fire 2 coordinators before Thanksgiving. So while everyone's fixated on can he coach offense? Can he coach the quarterback? Can he build the staff? And that's why I like Kevin Stefanski as the one retread on my list of the top 5 candidates for the Raiders.
Yeah, and Stefanski is out of the Andy Reid coaching tree, by the way, going back in Minnesota too. So there's opportunity there. I just want to put a lid on the John Harbaugh, because we got reports over the weekend of what John Harbaugh's demanding. $20 million a year, full roster control, say over the general manager. Does it sound like a fit? And listen, John Harbaugh, a fine coach. Some would argue he should have done more there as far as the playoffs go, but beside that, he's a fine coach. I got no problem with him as a coach, just not the right situation for the Raiders. I don't know how much he knows about roster management and building. Didn't work with John Gruden, I'll tell you that much. Can't argue that with me. So to me, the John Harbaugh stuff, fans, I get it. You hear a big name and you get a boner. I get it. But it doesn't make sense for the Raiders and what their plan is, what they said they wanted to do. John Spytek at the press conference, Mo, we want to build this the right way. He's the GM. That means he needs a partner on the football side, the coaching side, to help as he builds a roster into a perennial champion, as he said. That does not mean bringing in a 63-year-old coach, no matter how successful they've been. So that's my take on that. All right. Go ahead. You got more?
One quick thing I will say, that I understand when you hear a big name and he has a good resume, you're intrigued by it. But what I will say too is, what scares me off from some of these coaches is, if they want personnel power, that's not a head coach that I want, because we have already seen what happens when we pair an experienced head coach who wants personnel power with an inexperienced GM. And that's why I'm leaning toward a younger head coach, or a head coach who has been known to not meddle with personnel power as much. Kevin Stefanski allowed Andrew Berry basically to do his thing and be a GM. You want John Spytek to be a GM going forward.
Right. And there are a few examples where coaches with that much power have done well, but by and large, 95% of them have not. Even going back to Mike Holmgren in Seattle, if you remember. Okay. Not that they didn't do well, but he didn't get him over the top and made some pretty poor decisions. Good decisions too, but nonetheless, just doesn't work out very often. All right. Now we're going out to Dave Casper the Ghost, our final call of the day.
Hey, boys. Dave Casper the Ghost from upstate New York. It's Sunday morning in the midst of this crazy wild card weekend. 2 crazy games last night. Last time I called you guys, which was right after the Giants loss, I think, in my almost 50 years of fandom, I was at the lowest point in my as a fan with the Raiders. And funny how just a weekend or a week later, I am actually hopeful. You know, they moved on from Carroll. They have the number 1 overall pick. Fernando looked really good Friday night against Oregon. And going forward, listen, I'll try to make this quick. I hope they hire one of these young OCs. I am really intrigued by Davis Webb. I think you had a caller at one point say keep an eye on this guy. If he's the next McVay or the next John Gruden part 1, then hire him and roll with it if he's that impressive. Clint Kubiak, I'm all on board with him as well. Anyone from the McVay tree. So I'm out on, believe it or not, Harbaugh, because I think he's going to. Well, you see what he's demanding. He wants full autonomy, wants his own GM. So I think he'll end up in Miami or the Giants, personally. And I'm actually out on Stefanski. I'm butchering his name. The Cleveland former Cleveland Browns coach, Stefanski. I think he's going to want a lot of control too. Listen, 2-time Coach of the Year. Is he technically a retread? I don't know if I like that term. I want a young OC. I want one of these young guys. I know Stefanski is in his 40s, but I just want one of these young guys, whoever they think can mold Fernando. I'm assuming the Raiders take a Fernando and roll with it. So if you guys know anything about this Davis Webb guy, I know he was a Giants quarterback, third-string quarterback, had one start in his career. I know a little about him. I don't know if it's a serious. I don't know how the interview went. I heard it went well, and yeah, that's it, guys. I just a beleaguered Raider fan is actually somewhat hopeful. All right, boys, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you next time.
All right, there's Dave Casper the Ghost, our good friend, upstate New York, and we talked about Webb earlier. Dave Casper the Ghost, so I'm sure you heard that a little bit. But Mo, some of what he was talking there with the young coaches and sort of how that all melds together makes total sense. And I think that, as he mentioned, the McVay tree, which you and I are both high on, seems like the right direction. But, like you said, 10, 15 candidates by the end of the week, maybe. They're doing their due diligence, so that's it. But what about patience? So you're going to get one of these young guys, if that's the way it goes. And we've seen, maybe we're spoiled now because we saw Ben Johnson in Chicago. We saw Dave Canales after a couple years in Carolina. We saw Liam Cohen down in Jacksonville, even though their season ended poorly for them. Still a great season, no doubt about it. Biggest turnaround in the NFL this year. The Raider fans out there, I'm going to recommend, even if they do get one of these young coaches, not saying it can't happen, but you also have to have a little patience because the Raiders roster is not, I don't think, nearly, maybe Carolina's a better comparison, but those other teams' rosters were in a much better place than the Raiders are.
Yeah, this is just the first step. I know, like, we're all charged up on who they could hire as the head coach, but after they hired the head coach, as you mentioned, then they had to build the roster. Then comes free agency. What do they do with all of that cap space that they're going to have? They're going to have the second or third most projected cap space among the teams this year. So they got to learn, but they have to find out what holes they have to fill, who's available, maybe perhaps who they can trade for, because I believe they're going to have 10 draft picks as of right now. So that's going to be the second part, the second step. And then the third step will be drafting and adding depth to that roster, young players, and obviously your quarterback. But this is only the first step. So as you said, it's not one of those. I wouldn't expect a last to first leap in what could be a tough division again. I don't expect the Chiefs to win 6-7 games, 6 games again next year, assuming Patrick Mahomes is back on the field even after a torn ACL. The Chargers are going to hang around. I know we all laugh at the Chargers because they seem to crap the bed every year in the playoffs, but they're going to probably win another 9-11 games again. Denver's not going anywhere, so it's still a tough division. Though it's not a division that's you look at it and you say, well, the Raiders can never get to the top, the mountaintop in the AFC West. There is a pathway, but there's still a lot of work to do even after they hire their head coach.
Yep, and it starts with the quarterback. All right, so there we go. If you want to call in to be part of the next show, 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869. Mo, we're wrapping up, man. Tell everybody what you got coming up this week so they can keep track of your busy hands.
Top 5 coaching candidates for the Raiders. We talked about 2 of them today, Clint Kubiak and Mike LaFleur. I'll fill out the rest of that list over on SportsNot with the other 3 candidates I have. I also mentioned Kevin Stefanski. But there are 2 other guys, and there's one defensive coordinator candidate that I would actually consider for the job as well.
No, Mo. Oh, okay. There we go. Just kidding. Hey, you never know. You never know, but they're doing their due diligence. 2 words of the day, due diligence. Interviewing everybody, man. It's good. I like it. That's what the Raiders should be doing. You never know who's going to come in and just surprise you. So good stuff. Reminder, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black Today. Don't forget to rate and review as well. Yeah, take a little bit of time. A lot of you out there have been listening to us for a long time. Just take a minute there and give us a nice little review. If you don't like us, you can say what you want. All good. Otherwise, also on video, make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the notifications bell. We'll be back next week with hopefully some news. You never know what's going on, but keep an eye out on our socials, and I'll link below in the description so that when things do pop up, you can keep track of what we're thinking, what we're doing, and we'll get on the video or audio depending on what's happening. When news alerts are big enough to happen, we'll be there. Mo, my friend, as always, brother, take care.
Take care, Raider Nation. Take care, Scott.
Man, I'm having trouble talking at the end of today's show. All right. For Mo Moton, for our producer, Mike Robier at Odyssey, I am Scott Gulbransen. I'm going to go get some speech lessons somewhere, and I will talk to you guys next week. Thanks, Raider Nation. Take care.